This is a long-form story, divided into 6 parts for your convenience. Part 1. The Man Who Never Raised His Voice. Elias Monroe had lived 71 years without ever needing to shout to be heard. Not because the world always listened, far from it, but because he had learned early that dignity didn't come from volume. It came from restraint, from choosing silence when anger begged to speak. He woke before dawn, as he always did. The city of Harbor Point was quiet at that hour, the kind of quiet only rich neighborhoods and old souls understood. Elias stood at the window of his penthouse apartment, watching the Atlantic breathe against the shore. The sun had not yet risen, but the horizon glowed faintly, like a promise that refused to be rushed. He dressed carefully, the way men who survived eras of being judged learned to. Not flashy, not apologetic. A charcoal blazer, crisp white shirt, dark slacks. Shoes polished not for attention but for respect, mostly self-respect. Elias Monroe had earned everything he owned. Born in 1953 in rural Georgia, he had grown up picking cotton with hands that should have held books sooner. His father had taught him 2 lessons before dying at 48. Work hard, and never give anyone a reason to think you're less than human. Elias carried both like scripture. Now retired, widowed, and quietly wealthy, he lived alone by choice. Not lonely, selective. His children were grown, his legacy secure, or so he believed. That morning, Elias walked into the underground garage beneath the glass towers of Harbor Point residences. The air was cool, polished concrete echoing his steady steps. His car waited where it always did. A classic black Lincoln Continental, restored pristine, not loud wealth, timeless wealth. He pressed the key fob. Lights blinked. That was when the siren screamed. Part 2. Suspicion wears a uniform. The police cruiser entered the garage too fast. Tires screeched. Red and blue lights bounced violently off chrome and concrete. Elias froze, not from fear but confusion. He hadn't even opened his car door yet. The officer stepped out before the cruiser stopped rolling. White, mid-30s, broad shoulders, sunglasses even though they were underground. "Sir, step away from the vehicle." Elias raised his hands slowly, palms open. "I'm the owner," he said calmly. "I live upstairs." The officer didn't ask for proof. He walked around the Lincoln like a predator circling prey. "This your car?" the officer asked, already knowing the answer he decided on. "Yes." Registration. Elias reached into his jacket carefully, slow enough not to alarm, fast enough not to insult. The officer snatched the papers without looking at them. "You stole this," he said flatly. Elias blinked. "I'm sorry." "Don't play dumb. You don't look like someone who owns a car like this." There it was. The sentence Elias had heard in different forms his entire life. He kept his voice level. "Officer, my name is Elias Monroe. I'm a resident here. Everything you need is on those documents." The officer didn't read them. He reached for the handcuffs. In that moment, Elias felt something he hadn't felt in decades. Not fear. Humiliation. Cold metal closed around his wrists, tighter than necessary. A 71-year-old man, no resistance, no threat. Just assumption. Residents began to watch from elevators. Phones came out, whispers spread. Elias was escorted past his own car like a criminal. The garage that once echoed calm now echoed judgment. Part 3. The weight of silence. The ride to the precinct was quiet. No siren. No explanation. Just the low hum of the engine and the sharp bite of handcuffs cutting into skin that had already earned its wrinkles. Elias sat upright. He would not give them the satisfaction of seeing him bend. At the station, paperwork stalled. A clerk frowned. "There's no stolen vehicle report," she said. "Process him anyway," the officer snapped. Elias said nothing. Silence had carried him through worse. But silence also had limits. When the desk sergeant reviewed the body cam footage, the room shifted. Questions replaced certainty. The officer's tone, dismissive, accusatory, played back louder than intended. Elias was uncuffed. A supervisor apologized. But apologies don't erase fingerprints from dignity. Elias asked for a phone. He dialed one number. Part 4, a son who never forgot. Dad. The voice on the other end stiffened. It's me, Elias said. I've been detained. A pause. Then, where? 30 minutes later, federal vehicles lined the street. Elias' son, Marcus Monroe, stepped inside the precinct, not angry, not loud. Just unmistakably powerful. Assistant Attorney General. Civil Rights Division. The temperature in the room dropped. Marcus didn't yell. He requested footage. Documentation. Names. By sunset, an investigation had begun. Not revenge. Accountability. Part 5, the trial of assumptions. The case didn't explode overnight. It unfolded. Methodically. Evidence showed a pattern, complaints buried, stops dismissed, bias protected by silence. Until it was. The officer testified. So did Elias. When asked how the arrest made him feel, Elias didn't dramatize. He said simply, I felt like I was 71 years old and still not allowed to belong. The courtroom was silent. The verdict came weeks later. Guilty. Civil rights violation. Abuse of authority. Part 6, what justice really looks like. Elias returned to his garage months later. Same car. Same space. Different air. He opened the door slowly. Sat behind the wheel. Hands steady. Justice hadn't erased the pain. But it had restored something more important. Visibility. That night, Elias drove along the coast as the sun set. Not to prove anything, but to breathe freely again. Epilogue. Elias Monroe never asked for power. Only fairness. And sometimes, that is the most radical demand of all.